Hi teachers! We have advisory coming up this Friday, October 9th, and because we don't have a staff meeting or anything scheduled before then, I just want to give you a little overview of what is going to happen for this meeting and some ideas for what your goals are for the meeting, what activity we're going to be doing, and then any extension activities if you have extra time. All right, so there will be 3 areas that we really want to focus on for advisory periods over the course of the school year. And those 3 areas are going to be academic progress, so that's looking at transcripts, scheduling, what students need to be doing now to plan for the future. And then we'll also be looking at how do they access resources to get them where they want to go. And then we'll also be looking at study skills and note-taking. So those are things that are going to be covered later, and we've strategically planned them to fit with what is going to be happening in the school year at the times that we have those meetings. But today, the very first meeting that you're going to be having with your students, we really want to give you a chance to get to know them well in as short of periods of time as possible, because we only have so many advisory periods this year. So we're going to have 3 goals for your first meeting. The first goal is going to be providing a purpose for the meeting and for advisory periods in general, just making sure students know why we're doing this. Second is to connect students with each other and with you. So we want to make sure that they have a chance to get to know the people in their group and feel more comfortable with them. And then we also want to collect data that you can have, that you'll collect at the end of that time period, so that you can review it and be prepared and kind of get to know your students, even if they're not in front of you on a regular basis. So those are the 3 goals. We're going to be giving you a PowerPoint probably below this on your email. You'll see a whole bunch of different resources that you can use. So we'll have a PowerPoint that'll explain the purpose and as well as there are going to be some announcements and some extension activities that you'll be doing with this. So you can look through those, but I wanted to go over the activity because I think that will be the trickiest part. So I tried to come up with an activity that was going to capture in a very short period of time, like 20 minutes, helping students get to know each other, connect with each other. I had a student in my office who was dealing with anxiety, and we started talking about kind of her worldview and how she gets over anxiety, and I thought, gosh, this really relates to what we want students to be able to do. So the activity that we're going to go through is going to kind of reach her needs, but also give students a chance to connect with each other. So this is how that particular student kind of sees the world. So how this particular student sees the world is that each person kind of has a bubble around them, and that bubble represents all of their personality traits, all the activities they've done, all their life experiences, what they want to do in the future, their hopes and dreams, and that kind of encompasses who they are. And when she looks at the world, she sees everybody having these bubbles around them, encompassing all of who they are. So when we were talking about that, she realized that the more connections she can make with other people's bubbles, whether it's their background experiences, whether that's what they want to do in the future, the more connections she could make, the more safe she felt in the world and the more comfortable she felt in our school. So I feel like that's kind of what all of us feel. The more connections we can make with other people, the better we feel about, and the safer we feel and the more comfortable we feel in our school, and the more we're willing to talk and share about ourselves. So for this activity, I created a bubble that each of your students are going to be filling out. So this is an example of the bubble. There's some topic areas that they'll fill out and give examples of their personality traits, maybe some things that they struggle with in school, activities they're involved with, their future plans. And that way we can kind of get a chance to get a little bit of a snapshot of the students. Now this is going to act as your data if you decide to do this activity. So make sure that you have those bubble sheets and each student fills one out. So after every student has filled these bubble sheets out, you're going to be compiling them, and you're going to be putting them on a large piece of butcher paper, which will be spread out. And you'll have all of them connect their bubbles to this piece of paper, whether you want to have them tape them on, glue them on, however you want to do that. After they've put those on there and after they've done the activity that I'm going to explain, you're also going to have a T-chart where they're going to be reflecting on the scenario or all the connections they made and looking for what they have in common. And also maybe there's some unique or interesting situations or skills that has popped out during the conversation. And so we want to also take note of those. So you're going to put the students' bubbles on the paper, and then you're going to give them all markers, and they're going to be able to make connections. Now you can either say, I want all of you to make 4 connections with you and other students, or you can say make as many connections as you can. You can decide how exactly you want them to connect those bubbles. And then you're going to take some time after you've done that to do some reflecting on, like I said, what they have in common and what's unique about them. Now, that's going to be a lot of strategery on putting all these bubbles out, having kids have markers, figuring out where you're going to place this giant piece of paper, and being able to keep that information. So we also have an alternative activity that you can do. So you could also, if you wanted to be a little more tactile, is you can put your students in a big circle, and you're going to need a skein of yarn. So I don't even know what those are called, really, but the ball of yarn. And each student will take turns saying something unique about them. And then anybody else in the circle that has that same unique thing, that same thing in their bubble, they're going to pass the yarn to. So, and then the second person will go, they'll pass the yarn around, and you'll get to have this really great web of how all of your students are connected. So that's an alternate way. And then if that is the case, then you're going to collect their bubble papers that they'll have had just looking at. You'll collect those and have them on file to review later as your data piece. If neither of those seem to fit with your classroom or your personality or how you like to do things, you can also create your own activity that you've seen has been a powerful activity in the past that connects students with each other. But just make sure whatever activity you do, you complete or take some data from that so that you can actually review and get to know your students outside of that time period. So you have the choice of you doing the bubble activity, putting it on a giant butcher paper, doing the bubble activity, and using the yarn ball to kind of show how it's all connected, or you can choose another activity that maybe you've done and seen has been powerful. Just make sure whatever you do, you collect some data. Also, I have some sentence starters, so if you really want another way of collecting data, I will attach that to this email, and you'll be able to have that as well if you want to use that as a data collection tool. All right, so you might find that students are going to share things that you maybe didn't expect. With the bubble activity, there's a spot labeled struggles, and it says be general next to it. So hopefully they'll just say that they struggle with their parents, or they struggle with worry, or they struggle with anxiety. They might be a little more specific, like I struggle with my parents' divorce. But they might also say things like suicidal thinking, or I'm bipolar. There might be some situations where you think, oh gosh, I don't know exactly if I'm prepared for that. So if you do notice that a student put something that seems a little concerning to you, feel free to reach out to your counselors to touch base with them. Daphne and I will actually be out, unfortunately, on the 9th for a training that we are both needing to do. So make sure you shoot us an email. If you feel like it's something that's an immediate concern, that you think, gosh, the student is either in danger from someone else or in danger to themselves, then make sure that you call home or connect with the principal for some extra advice, just to make sure that we are keeping them safe. But any of that information is great data for us to have. So if they do overshare a little bit, that's okay. That's good information for us to have to be able to better support them. So at the end of your activity, after you've done a reflection time and you've looked at how you have some things in common and maybe some of those unique things, you're also going to have a couple announcements to share specifically with the juniors and seniors, and then an extension activity in case you have extra time. So the announcements for the juniors, they just need to make sure that they are aware that the PSAT test is coming on October 14th, and all of them are taking that. There should be emails out to them and their parents, so if they need to make sure they go back to their email, they can do that. And then seniors have college application week coming up at the end of October, and we have a little packet for them that we would want to pass out to them at that time, because then we can definitely get to all of them. So those two announcements need to be made for juniors and seniors, and there'll actually be a PowerPoint for each grade level, so we can tailor things to each grade level. So when you get this email, you're going to see different resources for different grade levels. And then we also have an extension activity that you'll see in the PowerPoint that you can use. So when you get the PowerPoint, feel free to make any adjustments to better fit what you are doing for your class and for your advisory period, and then, but it also have just general outline of what we want you to cover. So thank you so much for working with our students and for all that you do with them.